We're live on YouTube. Whoop, whoop.
Not live on podcast yet. No?
Fighting with Chris and Darren.
You are live.
Proves you follow Chris. I haven't got notification.
So this is Slap on the Giraffe, episode 181. This week we're joined by David Charles Lancaster. So you're, let me get this right, former personal training extraordinaire.
I wouldn't necessarily extraordinaire, but yes.
Fitness cover model.
Yes.
Now, like, property entrepreneur. Is that right? Investor?
Property developer. I find the word entrepreneur, one, I struggle to say it, and two,
I can't spell it. That's
Guru. I find it's one of those words that is kind of like heavily used at the minute, and it makes me cringe a little bit, but I guess that's just a bit silly on my part more than anything else.
There's the one I like is entrepreneur. All these guys that go to seminars and buy all these packages and stuff, but they're not actually entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Talking of...
Oh, as in like a want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Posers. When they go entrepreneur, it's like, oh, you mean unemployed? Like, unless you're making money, you're not an entrepreneur, right? Like,
talking of making you cringe, we better get this out of the way early.
oh, no. What?
Sorry.
Me or him?
You.
Me?
You ready?
Oh.
So did you listen to episode 178 at all?
I did not.
This is when we announced you were going to be on there, but we didn't really announce you were going to be on there.
No, you can't play that.
It's out there in the public. I was going to check with
So
you.
it'd be funny.
Yeah, you ready?
Oh.
This is how you end up with like men's fitness models training with you. Exactly. He was jealous. Did you see the picture? Sure.
That's good.
Oh yeah, it's like his dick.
Obviously, I'm joking.
Oh yeah, I'd suck his dick.
Which picture?
I have no idea.
Any picture. Chris wasn't looking at the face, believe me.
In future,
Yeah.
let me pick the picture.
Yeah.
Oh. I think it was Ben that was
Look at
talking.
that. He's all
Oh, right.
embarrassed now. Last episode, he said that I looked like Father Christmas who's just had chemotherapy. So I think,
Wow.
yeah, exactly. So I think I deserve,
Wow.
So I think I deserve to
It's
fuck him
a
up.
strong assessment.
So I deserve to fuck him up a little bit. Don't
He's
you, Chris?
also got a whole lot of beard for someone who's just had chemotherapy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 48 as fuck. I don't care.
Strong beard.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care.
He's like very fit for 40. Real generally for anyone.
Yeah.
For 48-year-olds.
He has a good scarf. Less of a good beard.
This is laziness.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu face.
So they rub it up.
No, it just, I used to like clean shave,
Mm.
and then you get ringworm and staph in your face because
That's
like,
disgusting.
so every jiu-jitsu person, like proper, any good jiu-jitsu person is never clean shaven
Is that true?
because it's like little cuts, right? Even if you've got staph and I roll with you, as long as it doesn't get in a wound, I'm
I
alright.
hadn't even thought about that. Well, actually, that's not necessarily true because I had ringworm like twice when I was when I first started going to gyms.
Yeah.
Even just like getting them from like I had them in such a specific place that you could tell that I used to at 17, 18 years old wear one of those racer back top man vests
Nice.
in the gym, and it was clearly where there was one edge of my back that would sit on the bench all the time, and I got ringworm in the same place twice.
Ringworm you might bet it, but certainly staphylococcus is like open wounds, and that shit can kill you. That's like
Yeah.
Who was it? The wrestler, the one that died. He not from that, died from something else. But he had like a hole in his armpit where it like cut out.
Oh wow.
The one that
yeah.
Randleman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he die from it?
No, he died from something else. But
Right.
he was like famous for having horrendous staph where you could like see through his armpit. Like,
That is disgusting.
I'm trying to find.
I went to America. I trained at Matt Hughes' gym for like a month and I lived there. And I came back and I was like itchy face and stuff. And I went to the doctor and he's like, "You've got 3 different types of diseases." So I go, oh.
Wow.
So it's like everyone from the world gets together and trains together. And they like clean them out every day. It's a clean gym.
Yeah.
There's like I'm training with a Japanese person and then an American and then whatever. So just sharing.
Are you being xenophobic?
No, I'm just.
So you telling us about the ringworm is not out.
Yeah.
I've got a little group from my training guys, We have David coming on the podcast tomorrow. Put up a men's fitness picture of you.
Oh, old school.
Yeah. And basically, you're undoing all the fact of, are you free on Saturday night? Or Sunday night? Or any night? Morning, afternoon, evening, any time. And now all these people have heard that you've had ringworm twice, and they're thinking, you know what? I might risk it anyway. It's like, it's worth.
To be entirely honest, the last time I had ringworm, I think I was like 18 or 19. So.
Okay, so if you do take any of these ladies up on the offer, you won't infect them.
Well, hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Hopefully that
You can't guarantee it.
Yeah.
You do jiu-jitsu, so you're going to get it back. You're definitely going to get it again.
I find that I find it super helpful in jiu-jitsu gyms where they have those alcohol hand sanitizer dispenser things, to the point where I used to actually carry one of those giant kind of like clinical squeezy tubs in my bag with me, just because of the first place that I trained at in Oxford. Occasionally I used to feel a little bit I just felt like it wasn't as clean as it could be, and often I'd come off the mat and be like, I'm gonna bath myself in like alcohol.
Classic me and jiu-jitsu thing is where you get a pube in your mouth and you're like, this is not my pube, that is someone else's pube.
This isn't going on to the earlier soundbite from the podcast, is it?
No.
To be honest,
that was nothing to do with rolling.
I like to shave it first. It's whole fantasy play.
Can't see the wood for the trees. To be honest, though, I have, especially when I haven't bothered brushing my beard, as I haven't this morning, my beard hair, when one comes out, it looks like a pubic hair.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow.
I'm just impressed you've brought it. That's
brush
why.
your beard.
That's why I'll never be a model, amongst a lot of other reasons.
No, the only
Well, appearance is holding you back.
Exactly. Yeah. The obvious is letting me down, but beyond that,
the only reason I brushed it was because it very, very quickly kind of gets like, because I have really, really curly hair.
right?
And it very, very quickly, after like a day or two of having cleaned it up, it gets bigger and just grows outwards. But it's technically not growing; it's just getting kind of dirtier and more like disgusting.
See, I never even thought about. I guess considering I've not brushed my hair for 28 years, that's why I've not considered brushing.
That sounds like freedom to me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I kind of like mine does similar. Mine starts even now. Mine's probably I trimmed it about a week ago. So it's really boring for clients, isn't it? I trimmed it about a week ago. And now it's already starting to sort of like almost grow outwards a little bit rather than in nice straight lines.
What do you think of hair implants? We were talking about someone's had them, and I got another friend that's got it. So I know 2 people recently that got hair implants.
See, it's the wrong person because you've said so many times on here that I don't really give much of a fuck. And I was bald at 21, and I just shaved my head. Yeah, I just shaved my head.
Makes you look younger.
Yeah, I just think like just shave your head. I can't imagine going to the hairdressers. I just can't imagine what a pain in the arse that would be. Like, honestly, I've not been. Once I went for a joke, I shaved my head, and then the next day we were on holiday somewhere. I turned up the hairdressers and I went, "What could you do with this, mate?" Just as a giggle. The only time I've actually been in a hairdresser's other than taking Zane in 25 years.
Next week's podcast, we'll buy a wig.
Yeah.
And don't say anything. Just like the whole thing, just like you said.
So up until about when would it have been? Probably June. I had hair down to like in between my shoulder blades.
Right.
Mullet.
No, like nice.
Okay.
And I found obviously during that whole time that I had long hair, obviously I needed to have it cleaned up every now and then, otherwise because of how curly it gets, it just gets disgusting. But I have had more haircuts. When I got rid of my hair, I basically shaved my head 100%.
Right, yeah.
And I've been to hairdressers more since shaving my head than I probably did in the 3 or 4 years leading up to that point. And honestly, the first time I went in, my hairdresser changed because he moved away and someone else did it. And he came in and I got there and I'd literally got like a full-on slap head. Yeah. And I got there and he was like, "So what are you here for?" Yeah. And I was like, "You need to make it more slappy. Yeah. I need to trim my beard."
Oh, here we go. Cut up here for a bit more interaction. Yeah. Yeah. So, modelling.
Mm-hmm. How does Darren get into it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can you hook him up?
Can you? You know what? It's like everything. I reckon you'd get like older model options.
Before you tell us about mod, this is you could do this.
Yeah.
So there's a modelling agency that specialises in people that are small that don't look small. Does that make sense? So you have a DFS advert for a sofa,
Yeah.
and you want the sofa to look big.
Yeah,
You can't have a short guy who looks like a short guy on it.
Yeah, it makes
You have a
sense.
guy who you would look in a picture and go, "Oh, he's 6'4".
Yeah,
But he's actually, in proportion short people.
That's it.
You know what? You know what though? There are multiple different model agencies for all types of different people, and this is
Been nice to me. Dodgy teeth and grey beard. Dodgy teeth model.
So obviously there are model agencies. There's probably more of them in the US and in places like South Africa and Australia. But for example, in London, you have model agencies that are angled specifically towards like editorial work, which is basically the high fashion sort of stuff. A lot of them cover a number of bases, but you have like editorial ones specifically. Then you have some that will do kind of like more commercial and editorial stuff.
Yeah,
commercials where your money is. There's no money in high fashion, no matter what anyone tells you.
Right.
And then you have some that will kind of like venture into like fitnessy sorts of bits as well as the commercial side of stuff. But then you also have there is actually a model agency. I don't know whether it's changed names or anything like that, but it's actually called Ugly.
There you go.
But this is the thing: they specialize in strange people.
Yeah.
So, for example, I did a job once where a guy turned up dressed as Santa, and he was like 7'4".
That's very niche.
Yeah.
And and that was exactly it. Like he got booked specifically for his quirk through that particular agency, and then there was another guy that turned up that literally looked like Santa.
Yeah.
And he got booked through that agency. So I think it's semi-unfortunately named.
Yeah.
But that particular agency in particular probably gets a hell of a lot of work because they have such a wide variety of different kind of like I'm not going to use that word.
But they're not
people.
pigeonholed as much as other people are.
So they have such a wide variety of different people.
Yeah. I wonder if there's an agency for people in their early 30s who look 50. What you do is you just kind of like, because he's a bit more agile than a 50-year-old would be, almost like a physical agency.
Oh, I like that though.
Like when you could probably go down onto your knees and get up without them creaking. So you could kind of like.
What are you asking
for? So you could probably be like a physical model, like a moving model for an advert for something like Omega Freeze or something, and say that Chris is 52 but moves like
supple
a
joints.
31-year-old.
Ah.
That'd be quite good, wouldn't it?
Okay. What a career plan that is.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, back on track. So how did you get into it?
So for me, it was it kind of was the route that I took. Some would probably say was quite cringeworthy, but I had a wonderful life as a result of that. Was that when I was on my summer break from my first year of university, I was working at a shop called I was working at Black's Outdoor in Sheffield.
Yeah.
And Abercrombie and Fitch were opening a Hollister in Sheffield in the Meadowhall shopping centre.
Right.
And so what happens is the way Abercrombie works is that they'll take certain managers and store opening managers, and they'll send them out onto the streets, and they do this thing called recruiting, which is basically they'll go around anyone that they think fits the kind of the look that they like.
Because you're in-store models, not salespeople or something, isn't it?
Basically, it's a glorified sales assistant. And so it kind of started there. I kind of got offered a job doing that. So I kind of took on both. I was working at Black's and at Hollister because when I was growing up, I kind of had this, I always wanted to be an actor growing up, but I always kind of felt like it was such a pipe dream that I actually never bothered.
Right.
Which some days I regret and other days I'm like, nah, it's whatever.
Yeah.
So I took this job there, and then during that process, when I went back to university again in Newcastle, they were opening one. But for the opening week of Hollister stores, they usually have shirtless dudes that stand outside and kind of build a buzz and so on and so forth. So because I worked in the Sheffield one, I asked for them to transfer me, and essentially it provided me with an opportunity to earn money whilst I was at university to help open the store. So I was going around recruiting people as well before the store opened. And by that point, I was in good enough shape to be kind of authorized to be a shirtless dude.
Yeah.
So I did that for a week at that store, and because I was kind of like one of the newest people to get authorized, the week later I got asked if I wanted to go and open the Aberdeen store.
Right.
So they flew me to Aberdeen, and I went there with a guy from Manchester, which was good fun. And then basically what actually happened was I one of the guys that I worked with in Newcastle introduced me to Andy Peters.
Right.
Do you know who Andy Peters is?
TV blip.
Yeah, introduced me to him, and he actually had, he still does, I think. He has kind of like a promotional model agency where basically what he does is he has connections with like Calvin Klein, with like Nando's and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And if they want promotional events and they want kind of like half-naked dudes,
Yeah.
He provides them. And he started that based on the fact that he once did a men's health cover.
He did that, yeah.
And he said that he found out from Men's Health that apparently it was really hard to get people for the covers in England. So he decided to try and fill a niche. So a friend of mine introduced me to him. I worked with him for a while, and I said to him one day, I was like, look, you know, I'm getting paid to have my shirt off half the time. I've always wanted to like do like a men's health cover or something like that. What can we do? And he was like, okay, well, let's have a speak to Men's Health and Men's Fitness. And he was like, I don't think Men's Health will touch you because you're too big.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
And he was like, but I'll speak to a few different people. And I went over to Men's Fitness, and they really liked me. And I kind of developed a relationship with the editor and the vice editor, I guess. I can't remember what the appropriate term is. So I did like a couple of shoots with them, and then a really cool thing that I got to do was that I eventually moved from the Newcastle Hollister store to the A&F, the Abercrombie and Fitch flagship on Savile Row in London.
Right.
And what I would do is I would spend the week in Newcastle studying, and then I'd go down to London and do shirtless in the London store at the weekend.
Yeah.
Just because, one, it was consistent, two, it was good money, and three, I was very lucky I had free train travel because of my dad's job.
Right.
So as a result of that, it was all feasible. And during that period, I met tons of different people, and eventually I did a casting for an Abercrombie and Fitch campaign. But the thing was, is I did the usual casting that all employees are allowed to do. But then Andy Peters got me a casting with the actual photographer himself, a guy named Bruce Weber, who's like super famous.
Right.
He's like the Billy Big Bollocks of like photography for like huge fashion brands. And I was actually really, really lucky because I kind of struggled with Abercrombie and Fitch in that, like, because I was so tall.
Yeah.
I was physically, even though I wasn't necessarily like proportionately a lot bigger than everybody else, I think I was always seemed a lot bigger than everybody else. And I think the head of kind of casting, he liked me as a person and he liked me doing the jobs, but I think he was never 100% sold on my size because I think he was just like, for some strange reason, he thought I was kind of like borderline bodybuilder-ish.
Right.
And this is like, this is when I was like in the mid 90 kilos range. So I wasn't even like as heavy as I am now.
Yeah.
But the demographics like skinny teenager hipsters, isn't it? Like
kind of, but I think so. I think he was never 100% sold on me, but I think I was really, really lucky, and I made a good impression on Bruce Weber when I went to his casting, because I think I actually got the campaign because of Bruce Weber, not because of Abercrombie and Fitch themselves.
Yeah, right.
So I was really lucky in that respect, in that I got to go to the US, and I shot for a week for Abercrombie and Fitch, which was a super cool experience. A little bit kind of like odd in places, like being standing stock bollock naked in the middle of a cornfield whilst it's pissing it down.
Normal Scottish,
yeah.
I hope it was a warm cornfield.
Warm rain.
No, there was nothing warm. Like a ping pong ball. But so like I got a super cool experience with that. By this point, I'd kind of like been putting feelers out in the fitness modeling industry, and then like maybe a few months later, Bruce Weber invited me to go to the US again to shoot for Vogue Homme, which is like the men's Vogue magazine, which comes out like quarterly, I think.
Right.
So that was a super cool
Men's
experience.
Vogue. I've never heard of Men's Vogue.
Yeah, it's not. It's called Vogue.
Is that just gay readers? That's got to be.
I'm not entirely sure, but it's either way, it was a super cool experience. And then after that, I kind of kept on pushing. I got like a couple of men's fitness covers, and it got to a point where, unfortunately, the relationship between myself and Andy Peters kind of broke down a little bit. If I'm entirely honest and use hindsight effectively, I think it was more that there was kind of a lack of communication between the two of us, and I think because I was quite young, I perhaps didn't deal with it the way I would have dealt with it now.
Right.
Which doesn't mean that I necessarily did anything to like upset anybody, but I think instead of me addressing it head on and speaking to him properly, instead I kind of decided that I just wanted to leave.
Yeah, right.
So I eventually left working with him, and I went and got a different agent. And then with the different agent, I was getting more shoots more regularly because it was less promotional and more shoot work stuff. And I got to do some really cool stuff. Like one of the coolest things I did was I shot a commercial for Head and Shoulders back when I had luscious hair. And that was really cool. That was like, I did 4 days in Madrid, and we were basically boxing the whole time because it was shot specifically for kind of like the Gulf, like the Arab Gulf sort of like region. And then eventually it got pulled into like South Africa and Italy and places like that. But that was super cool. I basically spent 3 or 4 days boxing. Yeah. In an old like rundown boxing gym, and they just like shot the whole thing, and it was like super cool, lots of fun. And then I think the coolest thing that I almost got but didn't get was literally just before I decided to kind of like sack it all off. I was on final option for a Diet Coke advert.
All right.
Oh,
so it came down to being like me and the other guy. And I did, to be honest, I never expected to get that far anyway, just because I am quite large, and it became very apparent that my size was an issue with a lot of people in the industry, which kind of at first really upset me and kind of bothered me, but then after a while I was like, that's just how it works, you can't dictate these things. So
how did you go from there, or the kind of modeling career, into training people?
So basically, I'd always loved training myself. That was one of the reasons I was able to kind of like get in shape without much in terms of like classical education on the matter. And then one day, so during this entire period, I continued working day to day at Abercrombie & Fitch just to kind of supplement my income and everything like that. And there came a point where I was just sick of it. Like, whilst working for Abercrombie & Fitch, I was really lucky. I got to go and do store openings in like Hong Kong, in Germany, like really cool places. Get paid lots of money to kind of essentially stand around like an idiot. So I had a wonderful experience. I was so lucky to get to see all these places, but I definitely got to a point where I was kind of over it. Like there was one particular one where I remember being stood outside of this store in Hamburg, which is a beautiful city. And I was stood out there, and I'd been there a day. And the manager came over to me. She's like, you don't seem your usual self. What's wrong? And I jokingly kind of said, I'm over it. And she was like, what do you mean? And all of a sudden, without realizing, I actually said it quite seriously. I was like, I'm over it. Like, I'm over kind of this and just kind of standing here. Which obviously in hindsight, I kind of
people just take pictures with you. I don't understand what they do.
Yeah, so people come and take pictures. You're encouraged to kind of like shout and engage people as they walk past, and kind of like just try and talk to people, and you learn like a few words of the language and try and kind of like ask people to come for photos. And
so you're shouting in Chinese?
No, not
in Hamburg.
No.
German, mate.
So yeah, well, that was it. So in Hong Kong, it wasn't a problem because the vast majority of people in Hong Kong speak English. So that was super lucky. But yeah, like I remember I did one in Madrid, and I didn't have to, but I picked up like a few like phrases and this, that, and the other, just to kind of like engage people and speak to them and stuff. So it was always really nice. But so I just got to a point where I was kind of over all of it, and I kind of like my mind felt like it was melting away. So I decided at that point to do two things. One was I wanted to do something different, and two, I wanted to kind of follow a dream that I'd always had as a child, that I'd basically not followed because of my mum, and that was to join the Royal Marines. So I kind of decided, you know what, I'm going to set the application going for the Royal Marines, and I'm going to do a PT course.
Yeah. Because
I figure I love training. I enjoy training with my friends and kind of helping my friends and stuff like that. So why is this not something that I've considered before? So I got pretty far into the Royal Marines training application. In fact, that was probably a little bit after. Sorry, I'll offset that by about 6 months. So I did this PT course, and I went and got a job in like a kind of basic sort of budget 24-hour gym sort of thing. Super lucky in that instance, in that, you know, like it was one of those places where you just gave them a certain number of hours a week and you didn't have to pay any rent, which provided you with an opportunity to build a business without creating more debt, which was nice. And whilst I was there, I think I was there for just under a year. And I was about to hand in my notice because I was moving to a different gym, and I actually got fired. But I got fired because I was very much. I don't like seeing people in managerial positions taking the piss.
Yeah.
And I don't like seeing them basically kind of manipulate and take advantage of the people that work for them, because of basically they're in a position where they need a job and they need to be able to work. So, and it got to a point where that seemed to be very much happening in this particular gym, and I'd call them out on it in team meetings, which was probably not the best way to go about doing it. Again, you know, but you know, these are all things that I did when I was younger, and then there came a day where I think they were just waiting for me to do something that they didn't like enough to fire me. And therefore there was a day where one of my clients had come up to me half an hour before I was about to train, and she was like, can we just do half an hour of boxing, some pad work? And I was like, sure. I mean, like, I'm about to train. So I was wearing like my training stuff.
Okay.
And basically the rule that I broke was that I was essentially training someone not wearing my appropriate personal training attire. But my argument was she didn't pay me for it. I just did it for half an hour before I was going to train because she asked me to, and it was no big deal.
Right.
But I got fired, and you know, it's whatever. But at this point, I'd already applied for a job at Ultimate Performance, which have you heard of Ultimate Performance?
No.
Have you guys heard of Nick Mitchell?
No.
So basically, Nick Mitchell is he's a very famous guy within the fitness industry, especially in England. He's written a number of like best-selling books, like the 12-week body plan that he wrote with Men's Fitness, and a few other different bits and pieces. And Ultimate Performance is his business, and it's kind of pretty well renowned for being like the best personal trainers in the country or in Europe or whatever it is that you want to say. And the reason that is just because the standards are so high. So I was super lucky to get a job there, which I didn't think I'd be able to get because I figured I didn't have enough experience. I didn't have this, I didn't have that. But it turned out that I think, one, I was in a position where I was sellable because of my previous like fitness modeling. Yeah. But also they'd created a new role, which was called basically a junior role, which was like an apprenticeship kind of thing, which meant I got paid like a minimal amount of money, and I kind of worked every hour that there was. But it provided me with such a fantastic opportunity to learn from some of the best people in the industry. Yeah. And I was there for just under 2 years, and I learned more perhaps in the first month that I was there than I'd learned up to that point. Yeah. Whether it was through like the level 2, level 3 personal trainer, or whether it was through different bits and pieces. And honestly, like the caliber of people there, and the caliber of conversation, and kind of how you would discuss different things and think about different things massively changed the way I thought about everything. So one of the things I had to do before starting was the guy that was going to be my mentor asked me to send him a program. He was like, write me a 12-week program.
Yeah.
That's quite intense, right? If it's like some expert in the industry, you know?
But this is the thing, is that I think it's a fabulous thing to do. And if someone ever asked me for specific kind of like help on kind of improving their ability to program, I'd do exactly the same. But the reason being is, I remember writing this program and I remember giving it to him, and bless him, like he and I had quite a strange relationship. Like we could never quite work out whether we wanted to be like mentor and mentee, or kind of friends, or kind of like colleagues. Like it was really, really a strange relationship. We had times where we were kind of like really pally, and other times where we were trying to create like boundaries and stuff. It was very hard. But he was really nice with me, because I basically, now when I think about it and I think about what I wrote, it was dog shit.
Right.
In comparison to how I would program now.
Yeah.
And bless him, he went through it and he was like, "Why have you done this?" And I was like, "I don't know, because I'm in great shape and that's how I train." And he was like, "That's not a good enough reason, David."
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, say you've got this exercise and you pair it with this exercise. Why is this a good thing? And I'm like, I have no idea. And he was like, well, you have to think about it from this perspective. So as an example, one of the things that you do is like, if you've got an individual, say they're doing some sort of like a split squat and they're holding dumbbells, you have to bear in mind that their grip is going to fatigue during the split squat. So whatever exercise that you pair with that split squat, you have to consider the impact of the first one upon the second, and making sure that you can maximize what you can get out of it. And that's just a super simple kind of like explanation of one of the first things that he ever taught me. And he was like, you're thinking about it in this particular way, and you need to think about it more in like a global way, which I honestly got so much out of that, to the point now where I'll read programs that other people have written, and because he used to send me some of his programs and be like, I want you to critique it. I want you to tell me why I'm doing these things, and I want you to tell me whether you agree with them or whether you do something different. And honestly, even just that small aspect of the things that I learned, I found just blew my mind in terms of how systematic I could be. And it just really went a long way. So I had a fabulous experience learning from some really, really great guys.
So you're obviously a very experienced trainer. What do you think of, just as a random example, kettlebells?
so my opinion of kettlebells, so I'll be brutally honest now.
Yes,
right?
brutal honesty. Yes.
Nick Mitchell, that owns Ultimate Performance, for a long time used to say that the only thing a kettlebell was good for was holding a door open. And symbolically, in the gym that I worked in Mayfair, he put a kettlebell against the door to hold the door open. Now, this is the thing, is it's 100% context specific. So, for example, the vast majority of my training experience with individuals and my training them is in a body composition kind of domain. And therefore, with that in mind, I 99% of the time would not use them. But I wouldn't use them based on the fact that, like I said earlier on, in every situation, you have to look at what's the most efficient and effective way of doing it. Now, for example, if you want to try and get people to improve their body composition by either growing more muscle or losing fat, there are far more effective ways of doing that than using kettlebells. Just because, for example, like you one thing that you'll see people doing at the minute is you'll see people doing kind of like a kneeling bottoms up kettlebell press. Now, in my opinion, a kneeling bottoms up kettlebell press is super, super good and useful if someone has shoulder stability issues. But I definitely, sure as hell, would not use it to try and grow his shoulders. So it's very much context specific. So in terms of like bodybuilding or body composition work, I wouldn't touch them, but I wouldn't touch them because they basically provide additional stimulus that isn't necessary and has kind of like an impact upon them that may take away from the muscle that they could grow. Now, with that said, if you take, for example, someone whose specific sport or specific training style is that of a CrossFitter, they need to kettlebell. They need to use kettlebells because it's very specific and it's functional for them because that's part of how it works. So with that in mind, but that's going towards like if someone has to do kettlebell swings as part of a workout, getting them to kettlebell swing regularly is super useful. If you then take someone else that has like a different sport, there's probably very likely a good reason to use kettlebells. So for example, a few months ago, I had really bad tendonitis in my elbows from doing so much jiu-jitsu, and I hadn't done that much jiu-jitsu leading up to that. And the thing that had exacerbated it was that there was a day where I was having to do kind of like sandbag cleans and throwing them over my shoulders. But I was obviously using a big D ball, which is basically just a soft atlas zone.
Yeah.
So to pick it up, you obviously have to cup it, and then you have to pick it up from this position, which was agitating it significantly. Now, what I found was I spoke to my coach about it, and I was like, this particular exercise is causing me more pain than good. And he was like, okay, so how can we create the same stimulus? And basically for that exercise, what I was doing is I had to do 5 kind of like D-ball cleans, which was basically like from the floor up to the shoulder. And then I had to carry it like in a bear hug for like a minute. Which obviously both of those things, the first part is working on the kind of like power and explosivity over whilst you're getting tired that would be required in jiu-jitsu. And then the second part of it is working on the ability to kind of like deal with pressure, because if you squeeze that thing, it squeezes against your diaphragm, which means breathing sucks and everything else sucks, but also it's kind of tiring. So that's another reason. But in that instance, what we did is we swapped the D-balls out for kettlebells. And the reason being was that if I gripped something like a normal grip, it didn't agitate my elbows. And in that instance, I was able to explode and do a perfect and kind of move as best I possibly could in that instance. And also, if you have 2 kettlebells and do a front rack position, it's not the same as bear hugging a D-ball, but it still has that same pressure, that leaning on the rib cage and getting you to breathe through it. So, there are definitely 100% viable and super useful things. And then there are other things that are probably less useful. But that said, when I mentioned the muscle building and the fat loss side of it, the muscle building for sure, I wouldn't use kettlebells. But there's definitely a place in fat loss because doing kettlebell swings as part of a kind of like conditioning section, I think can be quite useful. Just because it's a different stimulus, it's fun, and you get to do all sorts of.
I'm reading what you're saying. This is good, Darren's classes, because you're going to get fat burning, help your stability in your joints. If you're a middle-aged mum with Chinna that just works out once or twice a week,
or 5 times a week. Because
5 times a week,
but I think one thing to bear in mind is that with the general public, I think and for athletes actually, because I use kettlebells a lot at the minute, but I don't use them. I don't do swings very often. I use them for certain exercises like Turkish get-ups, straight leg windmills, and then overhead lunges. But I'm using them because specifically in that instance, the stimulus is creating an imbalance and something that's odd through my arm, and I have to be able to stabilize and redirect force through the different things that I'm doing. But the other side of it is that if you have the general public, as long as it's not loaded too heavily, anything like that to do with their shoulders especially can be super useful and super helpful, because anything that creates instability, as long as they're not too unstable and they're not too internally rotated, the benefits that can be found from there, the same way like we discussed the other day, we're doing like bear crawl related stuff. It seems super basic, but doing a bear crawl properly improves shoulder stability.
So many adults can't do it. Stuns me.
Sorry?
So many adults can't do a bear crawl. Right.
I kind of
so easy.
but I think with bear crawling, it's very much just I think some people just choose not to do it. Do you know what? Because like it's not hard. Like there's nothing like doing a bear crawl is not a coordination, proprioception hard movement. Whereas doing it for a prolonged period is bloody awful. So there's, you know, like a bear crawl isn't necessarily hard, but doing a bear crawl is again fantastic for improving shoulder stability, but also improving like shoulder integrity.
The American footballers, they get each other on their back. They like piggyback bear crawls.
Again,
It's
awful.
horrendous.
I think also, not necessarily defending my position, but just going back to kettlebells, I think it 100% depends what you require, absolutely. So years ago, when I was 18, 19, I'd be 70k and I'd be benching 110, I'd be squatting 140. I'd have a 30-inch waist, but I had to wear a 36-inch jean because my legs were massive and I was just big. But sure, I'm very suited for bench press, squats, this, that, and the other. My best mate is a carpenter. Helped me to help him up the stairs with a door.
Yeah,
I was useless. But if I could lie on my back and pick the door and bench press the door, awesome. Now my functional fitness at 48 is vastly superior to
This is
my.
bullshit. Every time you get furniture, you pay a man to come and do it for you. This is utter. I guess you could if you wanted to, but this is.
No, you know, I'm sure if I went back to benching, I would now probably struggle to bench 90k, I would imagine, you know, or whatever. But my functional fitness, my core, everything. But that's what I want. You know what I mean? I don't want to walk out and have people admire my pecs or whatever, like I used to when I was 18, 19. Yeah. You know, so it completely comes.
It's because you were living in Brighton.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's not so useful here. But yeah, you know, it comes down to exactly what you want. And if you want to improve, you know, I've got a client whose bone density was. So I don't know if you know, bone density starts at 0 when you're born, and basically it goes negative. So once you get to minus 2.5, you're into osteoporosis. Yeah. She was, a while back was 1.9. She got down to 2.4. She started training 3 kettlebell classes a week, roughly. She's back to minus 1.9. That was a while back, so she's probably back to minus 1.5. Now, she might not have necessarily got that if she was doing bench pressing, you know, but...
I think when it comes to like bone density and people that have osteopenia and then eventually osteoporosis, I think basically the best kind of prescription for people like that, within reason, obviously, is anything that's load bearing. So basically doing kettlebell work would be super beneficial because it's load bearing. Doing bench press may not be as effective purely because it's such a small, in the grand scheme of things, it's such a small movement. But for example, if she was doing bench press with squats, deadlifts and pull-ups, she'd probably still see the same positive thing. But I think one thing that should often be addressed is like the use of the word functional. So basically that's a word that gets thrown around quite a lot, and I think that whatever is functional comes down to whatever an individual needs.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for example, in like jiu-jitsu, so arguably someone might be like, you know, flat bench press isn't a functional movement because how often do you need to press in this particular motion? The majority of the time, if you're like, I don't know, whether you play rugby or you play like American football or you play any sort of athletic sport, the majority of pressing will be either a diagonal or more of an overhead movement. But like that's why someone will be like, yeah, bench pressing isn't functional. That's another reason why people might argue that but like it's very rare that you'll see CrossFitters doing bench press, and it's because for CrossFit as a sport, unless they're doing bench press, doing bench press is pointless.
Exactly. Yeah.
However, you take someone that does jiu-jitsu, and flat bench press is super necessary, and being able to bench press in really funny, stupid positions is super necessary, to the point where some of my press ups that I have to do at the minute are all kind of weird because all it takes is if I'm laid on my back and I've got one arm out here against someone's hip and one arm here, that is not if you saw someone bench pressing like this, you'd be like, dude, put that down. But, you know, for me, like what is functional for me is being able to exert force in those crappy positions.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I think, you know, at the end of the
Why
day,
bench every day?
Yeah. But I did similar to that in class. I did 9-point press ups where you start nice and close, then you go out, then you go out, then you come in, then you come in, then you come back, and so that your midpoint is wide grip press ups, but your extended point is right at the front, so you're really using your core, and you're just hitting them in different areas. It's all, you know, whatever there's so many things that you can do.
Yeah,
you know.
But basically, if we boil it down, kettlebells have a fantastic use in the vast majority of physical fitness pursuits. However, one thing that I think it doesn't particularly at all is specifically muscle building.
Because it's all round, isn't it? Even a swing, you're not isolating anything on a swing. You know, you're slowly going to build muscle, but you're not going to build muscle like you would if you were squatting.
The problem with a swing is I don't think it provides the adequate stimulus to create hypertrophy. Just because obviously hypertrophy, one of the biggest, outside of progressive overload, one of the biggest kind of like stimuli required to generate hypertrophy is consistent tension. Now, when you do a swing, if you do it properly, it should be a very powerful, explosive movement. And if it's a very powerful, explosive movement, the amount of tension that goes through your body per rep is a fraction of the amount of time each rep takes. So basically, you're training that explosive movement, and that explosive movement is a power exercise, which power is obviously like work done over time. So how much you can do in a certain time frame. That as a stimulus and that as an adaptation is a great adaptation to achieve. But it's not something that's going to stimulate muscle growth. But then again, arguably, if you've got someone that's a complete novice, never lifted anything before, they can grow from literally like picking their nose for 10 minutes. You know?
Like you said, it goes to exactly what you want. You know, I can't think of any of my clients who specifically want muscle growth, and that's why they come to me. You know, they do not want to walk around like I looked in 1990. Do you know what I mean? And that's why. You know, you did it's horses for courses, isn't it? Exactly what you
very much so,
what you want.
So how did you get into jiu-jitsu? I don't know.
So a guy that I used to work with at Ultimate Performance, he spent the whole 2 years that I was there
just talking about jiu-jitsu.
Going, Dave.
It's like CrossFit and veganism. You have to talk all the time.
It's like, Dave, you should come with me.
So again, he's another big Dave as well. He's like, Dave, jiu-jitsu, what do you think? And for a long time, I used to kind of like, I used to say that I like the idea and I kind of wanted to kind of give it a go at some point. But that first year that I was at Ultimate Performance, I had no life. I spent every hour that I could in the gym, just because that was how I had to work. I needed to work hard. So I didn't have the time or the resources to start jiu-jitsu. Then the second year came around, and I think by that time I was still a little bit fatigued from the first year, so I never kind of like jumped on the bandwagon. And then after a few years, I moved to Oxford and then lived in Oxford, and I met a guy for a little while who actually taught me how to Olympic weightlift, because I'd never done it before. I'd never been taught properly, and I kind of did a number of sessions with him where I was getting him to teach me specifically Olympic weightlifting. And he and I became good friends. And then after, I don't know, maybe a couple of years of knowing him, there was a day where he's like, "Oh, Dave, I've started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think you'd love it. Come and try it." So I
really want to choke you. That's what he said.
So I went and I did one session with him, and I did.
Did you go in thinking, I'm bigger than everyone, I'm stronger than everyone, this is going to be easy? Was there like some expectation?
No, not necessarily. I think obviously, like, you know, I have a black belt in karate, but I didn't expect for 1 second that would do me any favors. I'm obviously a large dude, but I think I'm generally speaking, I'm a very kind of like I don't assume anything of scenarios like that. And I went in and I expected it to be hard. I expected me to really struggle because I had no idea what I was going to be doing. And I expected that all it took was a little bit of technique and I'd be buggered. Yeah. And that was exactly the case. Like, I went in, I had a wonderful time. I enjoyed myself. And then I got choked out by this tiny little dude. And I was just like, oh, how did I let him get me with that? And then, I was pretty hooked after that.
That's quite unusual because a lot of the general story of people doing their first class is that, especially guys that lift weights and stuff, I see it in the gym where they shadow box to warm up, clearly don't know what they're doing, hit the bag bare knuckle because they don't have gloves with them, and then they lift and they walk around with this I'm tough, I'm hard kind of thing. And then they're like, oh, I did any martial art, but especially jiu-jitsu or boxing, and it's like there's this real truth to it. And it's quite accurate that you went in there not expecting to be able to own everyone.
Yeah, without kind of like seeming like a virtue signaling asshole. I think I don't have any kind of like preconceptions that I'm kind of like any better than anybody else in any way, shape, or form. Like, basically, if I was in the street and someone started mouthing at me, I wouldn't be awfully scared.
No.
Unless I knew they did jiu-jitsu. And then I'd probably be like, actually, like, I can do whatever I like to you, and you'll catch me with something. And
just look at their ears first.
Yeah. His ears are, okay, yeah. And I think for a long time, I just never really kind of like cared, because I went in, and I think my other thing is I didn't want anyone to think that I was a bully.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go in, because at the time I had long hair, I had a long beard, and I basically looked like an horrible Viking.
Yeah.
And I went in and I was, oh yeah, you know, but I didn't want anyone to be like, oh, that 125 kilo guy is just like smashing on everyone and just being a dick and just bullying people.
That's also the normal thing that happens.
So I purposefully didn't do that. And I kind of like have to check myself occasionally. There are days where I'll kind of be training and I'll be like, all right, stop being so kind of like anti-aggressive and just be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
And then I obviously had that conversation with Hodger Gracie that day where he said to me, I was like, sometimes I feel like I don't want people to think that I'm a bully because I'm so big and I'll throw them around. And I don't want to kind of like ruin someone's day. And he was like, David, if you get a chance to ruin someone's day, you should do it. And he was like, because how many times do you get smashed on?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's true. But I think it's that. I think I didn't want to be seen as like some big, as I went in, I didn't want to kind of like people think that I was a bully. So I didn't attempt to be the strong guy that was winning because he was strong. I attempted to learn.
You get so much better doing that because people will roll and it's like a little science experiment. You're like, okay, what's working? And if you're strong, that'll work, especially on other beginners. And you get this false feedback and then you end up repeatedly doing the same techniques, which are the wrong things to do. Yeah. And you have to look at, okay, what's working on the next belt above? That's the kind of, or a couple of belts above, you know, if you're getting stuff to work on them. And then go, okay, that's an actual real technique.
I occasionally find myself doing stuff that I think occasionally I'm like, oh, should I have done that? Did I muscle that just that little bit too much? Should I have backed off a bit? But it's usually when I'm in a really sticky situation and I'm like, this person's not like their base is terrible.
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, and I'm laid on my back and I've got an arm pinched and I'm pretty much sure that I can pinch a leg, so I can throw them off of me anyway. But the majority of the time, I like in that instance, I'll always try it to be technique based. But I think in some instances, you can't help but utilize the additional strength that you may have. When I do that to Hodger, he calls me a bastard.
Well, that's all you're going to do against Hodger. So,
yeah.
So I think we all, I'm not as strong as you, but I catch myself doing the same thing. I always try to match the strength of the person I'm training with. And then I get something, I can roll with a 60k woman and still get something out of the round because of like, I'll be about to bridge out of it and go, no, that wouldn't work if she was, because she's doing everything right.
Yeah.
If she was just my way, so I'm not going to do that escape. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree.
Difficult.
But again, like there's a super common theme that I have when I roll with people is immediately afterwards they're always like, "How much do you weigh?" And I'm like,
that's everyone rolling all the time.
And I'm like,
I didn't lose. You're just heavy.
Well, that's the thing is that they don't even need to say I didn't lose, but they're clearly looking for a reason why they weren't as successful as they'd hoped to be. And for example, I sparred with a guy on Tuesday. In fact, it was just specific sparring, and he was on top in side control, and I got out of side control like 10 times in a 3-minute round.
Good.
And each time he was like, oh, and he seemed kind of chirpy about it. And then it was my turn to be on top, but the instructor started talking to me, so I didn't actually manage to get to do anything. And then we switched again, and I was on bottom, but this time he was in mount. And I got him off of me in mount like 5 times. He Ezekiel'd me once, which I was so angry about because I was like, that's the sneaky little thing that I like to do to people that they don't often see coming. And he did it to me and I didn't see it coming. But I bounced him off me like 5 times. Good technique, not just being a brute. I mean, he was like 110 kilos anyway. But then he still afterwards was like, how much do you weigh? And I told him, and he's like, "Oh, you've got 10 kilos on me." And I was like, "Why are you like?
Who gives a shit?
Why do you care? Like, you're a big dude, and you're good,
especially if you're both over 100." It's like I feel like after that, it's just like it doesn't really.
I'm just like, you're a big dude, and you're good. Stop worrying about the fact that I got you off of me in side control.
So that when I was training in Brazil, I had a broken arm. Didn't tap to submission like 2 weeks before I went. Watched my elbow snap. So I went. I know I'd already paid for the tickets to go and train in Brazil, like the hostel, everything, and it's like a jiu-jitsu hostel. It's quite cool. But so when I had to train, and my arm wasn't too bad. It was like strapped up. It didn't hurt, so I could roll but not use it. So I tuck it in my belt and hold it in my belt, and I roll one-handed. And all these Brazilians were really nice. They were like, I'd say it in Spanish, which they seemed to understand in Portuguese, but my arm was broken. And they'd just do the same, all these little black belts, and I was purple belt at the time. And they'd roll one-handed with me.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. And then there's this guy, and like, everyone's like, he's a fucking monster. Like, be careful, he's a monster. And I went, I was like, oh, my arm's broken. He's like, good. And I was like, okay. I was like, could you roll one arm? And he said, no. And I was looking at him, and the instructor's laughing. And he's like, he's the super heavy world champion, a black belt.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I said to the instructor, how heavy is he? It was 143 kilos. So he's a black belt, 143 kilos with 2 arms. Against me as a 90k purple belt with 1 arm. I was like, completely fucked me up.
Why would you even ask? I purposefully would not ask that guy. Whether I had 2 arms or not, I'd be like, nah, you can stay over there, man.
It's so funny. One of the other guys was paying for privates with him. And like, you're staying in this hostel, and there's like 6 of you sharing like bunks in this little room, all jiu-jitsu people. And he's at the closest gym. So this guy's paying for 8 a.m. privates, whatever it is. And he overslept. I haven't gone for his private. So this 140k world champion comes in and just flips this bunk bed with the other guy, some other random dude underneath. He's woken up flying through the air. What the fuck? Like, get ready for the private. Like in Portuguese. Just no, this guy's got no idea what he's saying. Just screaming in his face.
I'd have gone for a coffee instead. Just be like, well, you missed it, mate. I had a coffee and you're paying for it.
Yeah, cash in hand, you've got to get them.
Yeah,
like dragged into the gym.
Yeah. I've got a couple of different questions for you. We've got a couple of questions from people.
Yeah.
First question, flicking back to modelling if we can. How important, got to go over this on this one, how important is sleep when you're modelling?
100%.
Or just training generally, right?
Sleep is important in every single aspect of life.
And a good mattress?
I mean, I have an expensive mattress.
Yeah.
No, not expensive. No, we're not worried about expensive.
No matter how good your mattress is, we can do better.
Yeah, we're not worried about expensive. We're worried about a good mattress.
Yeah.
A good mattress doesn't have to be.
The best is,
expensive.
you get like these mobile phones that are covered in like Swarovski crystal.
Oh yeah, that you can buy in like Harrods. And
They're the
stuff.
most expensive. They're not the best phone, are they? Right?
Exactly.
My Google Pixel 3 is the
I
best.
feel like you're about to sell me something.
No.
Wouldn't do
So-
that,
but if we were,
Yeah. If you want to look as young and refreshed as Chris,
well,
what kind of mattress would you use,
give
Chris?
that a shot. Me,
Yeah.
So, I would use a Leesa mattress. Leesa. They are the best mattresses on earth. The money can buy.
And can you give us a discount on it?
No. Sadly not. They're just too high quality.
Okay, all right then.
Can you imagine getting that for Christmas? Because as a kid, I always wanted the biggest present under the tree,
Absolutely.
and it's
So the mattress would be the
course you
biggest
did, yeah,
present.
exactly, yeah.
There's that. Well,
Wouldn't be under the tree, would it?
Yeah, no.
we know that Darren
No, it would.
struggles to
It
carry
comes in a box.
furniture.
Comes in a box.
It comes
Is it a
vacuum
roll-wrap?
packed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you can carry it upstairs.
Yeah.
But you could wrap that box below your Christmas tree.
Yeah, just imagine that. You'd be like, what have I got in there? And
Best
you'd be like,
Christmas
yes,
ever.
it's a mattress. I've got a mattress for Christmas. But we can give our listeners an £80, at least £80.
80!
Yeah.
80!
It might even be more if you go on to
So
the
you could
website.
buy the giant mattress present for your missus, and you got 80 quid to
80
buy her
quid.
some fairly cheap jewellery.
Yeah,
Like-
exactly. Yeah.
Jewellery.
Go to Leesa, leesa.co.uk/giraffe and get an £80 discount and get it delivered. Try it for 100 days. If you're not entirely satisfied, you can send it back and not pay.
I
Just gets better and better,
I
doesn't
find it insane that like mattress companies can do stuff like that, where they can let you have it for such a prolonged period,
Yeah.
and you come back and go, actually, no, shit.
Yeah.
No one sends them back because they're
No,
so
exactly.
good. There's confidence in your product. That's
Yeah,
what that is.
exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, for every mattress they sell, they plant a tree. Good for the environment.
It's the same tree. They rip it out.
Yeah. And for every 10 mattresses they sell, they put they give a mattress away to a homeless charity. So all round good eggs, £80 discount. Leesa, leesa.co.uk. Second question for you is: when you're modelling, you don't really want too much sugar, do you? In general, just agree. This is not a proper question.
All right, all right. You know,
So if you're having a nice curry or something, you wouldn't want loads of sugar in the spices and a load of rubbish in the spices. You want it to be nice and pure.
yeah.
Just like-
I do agree with that.
Just like this lovely gift box from Momador's Kitchen, and we
Shut
do
the
happen
camera.
to have
There we go.
Momador sitting over there.
Herbs and spices.
Herbs and
Yes.
spices.
So they come
to
with
make
recipe books of how to make it. It's mostly Italian food.
pre-made. So what you got in there, Chris? Can you read it, David? What we got?
You can read it, just in case I pronounce it.
We have got chana masala. Chana masala.
Yeah.
Why are you making me read?
Do you want me? Let me read
Karahi
it.
lamb.
Let me read it. Karahi lamb and prawn masala.
Oh.
Yeah. So all sugar-free, gluten-free.
I do,
shit-free.
especially with spices. I'm huge proponent for like not putting anything in there that doesn't.
You
need
need to go
to
on
be in
Mummador's Kitchen. It's the
There you
best
go.
stuff.
Mummadorskitchen.co.uk. Is there a current discount code, Mummador?
Mama Spicy.
Mama's
10% off.
Mama Spicy, 10% off. All come with a recipe guide.
Did I get 10% off
etc.
those?
No, you pay 10% more.
you get a dick discount, which is the opposite.
If you want a Christmas present idea for me, there you go.
There you go.
I got buy you a present.
There you go.
Can I make another order, Gears?
There you go.
Can you
Perfect.
give me a discount this time?
Trainers always always give clients presents.
I always buy-
not the
Yeah,
other way
exactly.
around.
I always bulk buy like healthy cooking books and stuff.
Yeah.
It's quite boring.
I'm aware I've got sort of like 15, 20 minutes. This is a leading a question on for a question. Do you watch UFC?
Occasionally, yeah.
Cool. So we can run through the card before we go, as it's 2-3-1.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Ortega. Yeah, that's very exciting.
Is it
Got
Jiu-jitsu
one
all the way.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I've got
I'm
another,
excited for that.
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, guillotine.
And I have
It's gonna
another-
happen.
another question as well. So this is from a. So when I put up, we've got you coming in. Do we have any questions? The only one I'm actually going to bother asking you, other than are you available on
Do you know
Saturday?
Darren asked Roger Gracie how long it would take Roger to beat him
Hmm.
in a jiu-jitsu match?
I think that's a legitimate
He's
question.
never trained jiu-jitsu once in his
I think
life.
that's legit. Like, would it be 10 seconds?
He'd
Would it be
probably
4 seconds?
just do this.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
and then that'd be it.
Yeah.
And then it was, how long would it take you to meet Chris? And he said like 2 minutes or
It was
something. I was
fine,
like,
mate.
bullshit.
Right, Daz, can you ask David whether he thinks the government will collapse after next week's Brexit vote in Parliament? And if so,
he told me
I
no
told you
politics.
not to
He
ask
told me.
and if so, after Mrs May's subsequent resignation, who's the best person to see us out of this?
My
sorry
ear
days?
looks fucked up. Everyone's just staring. at my
Also,
phone
you
the
haven't
whole
got to
time.
answer that one. But also, who does his eyebrows?
My eyebrows.
Yeah, cheers.
That's
No.
a bushy eyebrow.
No one
Yeah,
does
no
that.
one does your
Exactly.
eyebrows.
With regards to the politics side of things,
Yes.
I think it's daft to assume that no matter how much it gets screwed up, that Theresa May will resign, because she didn't resign after that general election, which was basically a vote of no confidence, which is usually what people do. She didn't resign when she probably should have done. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely sure who would be better suited to kind of like draw us out of this mess. But I think either the MPs should be able to kind of just be like, no, there's no Brexit, or we have a second referendum.
Second referendum.
Right. Do you feel like, you know, when you said that you were getting fed up with the modelling and you just like, I'm over this?
Yeah.
Do you get, or did you get at the time, people thinking you were either a dick or stupid because of what you were doing? And that's why I asked the question. Obviously, Pete's saying it as a bit of a giggle, but most of the questions there were like, "Oh, what are you doing Saturday?" or "What?"
Poser.
Yeah,
Yeah, very much so. I think, but I had that growing up in general anyway, because I was obviously always the tallest, or I'm like. It's just nature, but I've always been someone that will always like visually stand out just because of how tall I am, or for any other reason.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, it was a very, very common theme when I was growing up and going through university, especially, that the assumption was always that when someone saw me, that I would either be dumb as hell or a dick. The dick was the one that I got the most. People would assume that I was a dickhead, to the point where actually a long time ago, a friend of mine at university introduced me one evening to a girl. And like an idiot, and I was really embarrassed that he did it, but when he introduced me to her, he said, "Oh, this is David, blah, blah, blah. Oh, he's a model for so-and-so." And she literally like scrunched the nose up and I was like, yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
And then literally turned around and walked off, like didn't really say anything. And then like a couple of like weeks later, it turned out that she was on my course, but the year below me. And I bumped into her at some point and started speaking to her. She ended up being my girlfriend for a year.
Right.
But it was because I met her without the kind of like at a point where she actually had a chance to talk to me, rather than, I think it's super common for people to just think that, you know, someone.
The Tinder profile pic. Come on, men's fitness cover. It's got to be the move.
Wow.
Did you miss the generation?
No, I did Tinder for a short period, and but it was when I lived in London, and you know, I was getting like matches with people that like I lived in Southwest London. I was getting matches with people that lived in like East London and this, that, and the other, and I was just like, nah, I'm not going to East London. Sod that. So I just never actually.
What? You're late. You don't take a bus.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
How much time have you spent in London?
Oh, this is true. Not a lot.
Honestly, if you live either central or west or anything like that, the thought of going east is like taking pins and sticking them in your eyes.
Yeah, but my missus used to live in Mile End. I used to travel from Oxford to Mile End just to see her.
But at least from Oxford to Mile End, you didn't live in London.
Yes,
You had the joys of not living in London.
I hate London. I gotta be honest.
I don't hate it. I think I really got to a point where I struggled to live
Miserable. The tube stinks, and everyone's just sad, and people grumpy. Everyone's just unhappy. And everyone looks like there's like an underlying anxiety. Sort of
there. Yeah, I think it is that continuous hustle and bustle, and like don't get me wrong. Like I go to London 2 days a week now. I hate the travel to get there, but I enjoy being there, and sometimes it's just enough for the nostalgia to be kind of like fun. Like you get there and I kind of get out of a cab and I'll go and get a cup of coffee from a coffee shop, and then I'll walk around the corner, and it's kind of like that nice sensation that you get from London. But honestly, when you live there, it's a totally different lifestyle because you don't get to enjoy all the joys of London.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
Which is why you do a motorbike license, and then you never have to take the tube again. And your 45-minute commute becomes 15 minutes.
I think what it is, I like driving, and then London, it's like you pretty much just take public transport everywhere.
Yeah,
It's like I like just sitting. Like even if I hit a traffic jam, I'm sat in my car, got a nice book going. Like it's all good.
again, if you do your motorbike license, there's no such thing as traffic.
Well, yeah, this is true, but then you can die, which seems like a worry.
I've got some quick fire questions for you. So, new feature
For who? David.
for us,
Okay.
for both of you.
Okay.
Quick fire questions, shamelessly stolen from Yanis, Mr. Sport,
Mr. Sport.
from Yanis's Instagram.
Okay.
He does some good questions, right? First question is one-word answers. Which is worse, smelling like poo but not knowing it, or constantly smelling poo that no one else can smell?
The first one.
Oh, second one.
Second one, okay.
Apparently, they don't like poo is a learned thing. Babies don't find it disgusting. They learn to find it disgusting. Apparently,
Okay.
smells isn't like a genetic.
Also, I have 4 dogs, so I'm pretty used to the smell of shit.
Yeah.
Cool. Would you rather live like a king but have no friends, or be homeless but have friends and family?
Oh, wow.
See, these are good, aren't they?
What are you? What's your answer?
So
Fuck friends.
I used to be like a massive extrovert, and I used
Yeah.
to be super sociable. But as I've got older, I've become, I think, as a result of working in the personal training industry,
You hate
become a
people.
lot more
You see people all
introverted.
day every day, don't you?
Darren hates people.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Um,
see people all day every day.
But friends and family over other stuff.
Because if you've got
You don't.
if you've got
you
friends
get
and
live like a
family,
king,
then they're gonna help you out anyway, so you wouldn't end up. If you've got friends, like
Yeah, but that's the point of the question.
I
Is
know.
that you have to be homeless.
Yeah, but then they're shit friends because they're leaving you to be homeless. They're not proper friends.
I
It's
know.
a difficult question.
Yeah. Okay, next one.
Don't like
If you could find out when you're going to die or how you're going to die.
Oh.
These are hard, aren't they?
The how, the when is an issue. I think the how.
Yeah.
I'd want to know when. The reason being is if you know how, every time you do anything that mimics that,
Yeah.
you'll be like, is this
Yeah,
it?
Exactly.
And you'd spend so much
Yeah,
of your life
right.
like stressing.
But if the when was like you got a fortnight, mate.
Yeah, but then you'd have a bloody good fortnight.
Yeah,
That's the thing. You'd
shit
actually,
ton of money.
You might just, you
Yeah.
might just be depressed.
you'd actually be able to base your, you'd be able to base the rest of it. Say it's going to be like you're going to be 92. We shit, I better eke out a few quid. But if it's like for you, you're going to be like 51. It'd be a shit. I've only got a couple of years left. I better-
51 is your estimate. Cheers.
I better make the most of it.
What did you
Right.
say you today?
Would you rather eat a vegetable and feel its pain, or be a vegetable?
Eat a vegetable. What?
That's a strange one. I will admit.
First and foremost, vegetables don't feel pain. They aren't sentient living beings.
Yes, they do.
And anyone that says that they are is an
They
idiot.
talk to each other. They communicate underground. There's something about that. It was on Rogans.
Oh, okay.
Don't trust everything that you hear.
All right, a different one. Would you rather be able to freeze time or be able to time travel?
Oh, mate,
Oh.
the number of times I wish I had Bernard's watch. You
Yeah.
remember Bernard's
Yeah,
watch?
it's a good
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I always wanted Bernard's watch. I wouldn't want to time travel.
No.
No.
What? No. What? Forwards and backwards? You could
Yeah.
see it. Like you could see the like. You could go to the future.
Where everyone is dead.
Maybe. All right. You could go a few weeks in the future and get the lottery numbers. So you'd like not worry is not
Where
an
Donald
issue.
Trump's fucked us all.
But then again, if you could freeze time, you could just take money. Can you?
The question is, if you freeze time, do you continue aging during that period? Because that's an issue. Because if you were to use it very liberally, you'd probably age super fast in real time.
That's true.
There you go.
But if you go like, oh, I'm going to freeze time for everyone else, and I'm going to spend 2 years studying a language while everyone else is just frozen.
See, I used to have this idea that you could use Bernard's watch, but as long as you touch someone, they could be with you in the time
You
freeze.
thought about this way too
I
much.
know. I really thought about this, but you don't think vegetables feel anything. I'm a little bit confused now.
I've thought about whether vegetables feel anything, and they don't.
I only eat fallen fruit. It's naturally fallen off the tree.
Yeah.
And lick rocks.
We spat everywhere.
So, before we think about wrapping, UFC main card, UFC 231.
Yeah.
Decent card. I'm only going to do the main. I'm only going to do the main card.
He always starts way too far down.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. We're just doing them at the top
Pretend
5.
I've heard of these people.
Top 5.
Top 5.
You'll know this. Here we go.
Yeah.
Jimmy Manuel.
I love Jimmy Manuel.
Muddy knees.
He's on our podcast, and he violently hates me.
Really?
I don't know. Well, he hates Darren
Yeah,
more.
hates
but
me more.
so
shall I tell my one and then we'll go on to yours?
what did I do? I didn't do anything.
We try where possible to ask listener questions, right? And Jimmy wasn't particularly keen to be there.
His agent was making him do press,
Yeah.
so he was like on the Skype and was like, "Oh, for fuck's
He was
sake."
in a cafe in
He's a gangster that was
Norway,
in-
I think.
He was in jail for being a gangster and then became a fighter. Like he's a rough dude.
A lot of background noise. Cafe in Norway, right? And he wasn't really saying too much, right? So I thought I'd ask an out there question that someone asked us to ask, right? and the question was to Jimmy from little old me, little old 70k me to
Well,
him.
this wasn't sat here.
Yes, exactly.
Thank
Yeah.
fuck.
That would have been
Yeah.
badly. So the question was,
Violent man.
if you wake up in the middle of a forest with muddy knees and a sore ass, would you tell anyone? Right? Pretty much relaxed. question, you know,
question.
right? And he looked at me and he went, no. And I went, there's a follow-up question for that. If the answer's no, will you come for a walk in the forest with me? Or something like that. So Jimmy's looked at me, and the moment you instantly think, fuck, this ain't gone too well. He's looked at me and he's just gone, don't do that kind of shit, bro.
I mean, that is terribly inappropriate.
Completely like that, right? He's just had a look. And basically he made us edit it, right? And we had to edit that bit out. And
Yeah, you're mentioning it.
yeah, well, we don't care. We
Well,
don't
that
care now.
was
Chris has basically done everything but totally just called him a straight up cunt for the last 18 months.
The
Because of
problem
that.
is because of my industry, I bump into him all the fucking time.
But whenever we mention it, Chris is like, well, I'll just pull garden subbing me, can't do fuck all. You know, all this kind of stuff, right? But yeah, so anyway, that didn't go too well. And
Like a tiger.
one of my mates, I'm kind of mates with Luke Barnett, he's good mates, or he knows Jimmy quite well. As soon as it happened, I've texted Luke. I was like, you might want to listen to the podcast, so I'm really fucked up. And this is what I asked Jimmy. And Luke replied and put, should have asked me, I would just ask you to take me to a hotel. So it's kind of quite a nice, he had a more rational response. Anyway, Jimmy Manuel against, this is a cracking fight. Jimmy Manuel against Thiago Santos. Now Santos beat
He's savage.
he beat Eric.
Anders?
Yes.
Yeah.
Savagely
Yeah.
last time out.
Well, I hate Jimmy Manuel, so and the closet homosexual that he is. I was cornering someone at an MMA event. You walk out, you're on this like gangway, and I looked down and there's Jimmy Manuel sat right there, but looking at his phone. I was like, I cut to the other side.
Well, it was Cage Warriors last time he was there as well.
Oh, yeah.
I thought about having a chat and saying you were on our podcast.
Christ.
I thought, no, I better not. So I think it'll end in a knockout. And Thiago Santos is quite a big favourite in that, betting wise. I don't know so much.
Jimmy Manuel's quite
I don't
old.
know.
I think he's on a bit of a slide now. I think he's reached that
Yeah.
point in his career.
Yeah.
And he started very late.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. He's got great striking.
Mm.
Like he is very good at that. But I mean, his wrestling and the rest of his game is a bit
I
such.
mean, it'll come to that though, isn't it? I think it's going to be a stand-up war, and who wins out of that?
Both knockout machines. But I'm picking
Yeah.
Santos.
Yeah, I think Santos will win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy wins. Thoughts?
I know nothing of either of them.
Okay, so you agreeing with us?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm going to skip that one. Donald Cerrone against Gunnar Nelson.
Ooh,
Mm.
got it.
Is Cerrone fighting again?
Is that happening?
What? That was like 2 weeks ago, wasn't it, Soroni?
Yeah. This is on Underground app.
Gunner's definitely fighting because I watched the interview with him, but I didn't know who he was fighting.
Let's just double check that.
That's a terrible
He's
matchup.
fighting again. I'm pretty sure he
Yes,
fought
he-
like 2 weeks ago, didn't he?
Goodish
Yeah.
matchup for him though. I can see
Uh,
he won. Didn't he? Yeah, he won.
Yes, 2-3-1 card, right?
Where is the event?
Scotia Bank Arena, right? Hold on.
Gunner's definitely fighting.
Yeah. So it's the official UFC website. Let's go on to there.
So Gunnar, while you do
There we
that,
go. Yeah.
you know Gunnar Nelson.
Of course I do.
Savage.
I've been to Iceland.
Oh, you met him?
No,
No, he's just a fan. He's a stoic.
I'm gonna try and go and train at Mjolnir though. When I go, in a
it's
couple
huge
weeks.
as well. I got some friends that have been there.
I'd like to do that.
I think you should take me with you.
You can call me. I don't think your wife would be too happy though.
Yeah.
No, Gunnar Nelson v Alex Oliveira.
Yeah, that's the
I was
one.
going to say, that baffled me.
Oh, of course. Cerrone got his fight brought forward, didn't he? So
Yeah.
he could fight in Denver.
Yeah.
So his fight was brought forward. So yeah.
So Gunnar Nelson, he started thinking he was a kickboxer, and I think he had a few fights where he's got like karate style, right? Like in and out footwork, hands down.
And he knocked
And-
someone out quite impressively, didn't he?
Yeah, he knocked out the striker. Who was the striker everyone was raving about for a while?
Yeah.
Bennett. And so everyone's like, oh, he's a striker. And I think it's one of those things, like Damian Maia did it for a while, where you're like, oh yeah, I am good at this shit. You have a little bit of success, and you do the, to quote Sharp, you forget what brought you to the dance. And it's like, Thatch, you knocked out Thatch. And part of the reason you can knock out these strikers, even though you're not a striker, is because they're so scared of you taking them down because your jiu-jitsu's so good. But that's because your jiu-jitsu's so good. So you have to go back to what got you to the dance. He's one of the best, like, MMA grapplers on the planet. It's like, apart from Damian Maia beating him, made him look stupid. But with the exception of that, so it's like he's got to take him down. And Oliveira's a really good striker, and it's just got
Interesting. I wouldn't want to
wrestle
pick
fuck
that.
him.
Wouldn't want to pick it.
But
Yeah.
Gunnar Nelson's been out for a while. You look at the pictures of
Yeah.
him. That boy his body's completely changed. He's shredded.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's done something different, very different.
Right. Huh? So you're going Gunnar?
Yeah,
By sub?
yeah. What am I
Yeah.
thinking? Rear naked choke. Keep it simple.
Valentina Shevchenko v Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
I'm excited to see that.
It's good knowledge.
Honestly-
You've got some MMA knowledge.
Honestly,
This
like
is good.
watching the videos of Joanna, I can't pronounce her surname.
Yeah. She used to be Joanna Champion. It was easy,
Joanna.
wasn't it? No, she's
doing
not.
pad work. Honestly, that woman moves
She's a
so
psychopath.
well.
Yeah.
Like I was watching a video the other day, and she's just hitting pads, and I was just like, she's so coordinated and moves so incredibly well that I literally, my mouth was open. I was like, she just looks incredible. When
People
she
said she might be the best. They were saying when she was the champion that she might be the best striker in MMA. Full stop. Right. Any division, sex, whatever. And then Rose came in and outstruck her.
Yeah.
And it's like how, because the whole thing was getting in people's face, bit of trash talking, like real intensity, and it didn't work. She lost the belt, and it's like, how much has that affected her?
Almost some Mike Tyson effect kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like, I think skill wise, she's huge.
But did she get knocked out?
Yeah, she got finished.
Yeah.
Choked.
Knocked out first time, didn't she?
Knocked out, yeah.
Because that's the thing. If you're like a phenomenal striker, there is still a chance that you can either make a mistake or choose the wrong tactic, and you'll still get tapped.
Yeah, of course.
When I say tapped, I mean you'll still get clocked, and you'll
But
still go down.
it wasn't like a
sack
fight
shit.
where she got caught with a lucky punch. She was outstruck. It might be.
That said, she is my bet of the card for an outsider. She's 3-1.
Shevchenko's got to be favourite.
Yeah, she is.
She's a more what's the word? Celebrated striker.
Yeah.
She's coming down in weight as well.
But Joanna is 3-1.
3-1.
Yeah, I
Good
think
bet.
if you step it back a year, then the odds are almost reversed. I know you can't do that, but I just think she's good value at 3-1. I
Shevchenko's
think.
tough, isn't he?
Yeah. Be interesting.
Shevchenko took Nunes to a decision. Is that right?
I think so. You know me and women's fights.
Darren's very sexist. He doesn't like women's MMA. Whereas I celebrate is the only thing I watch. I'm like, this will be a decision. I'll just fast forward to the end.
Where are we?
Yeah, I do like women's fights. I just like Joanna and like Rose and Amanda Nunes, Cyborg. It's like I like high level skill. Like even I don't like knockouts. When people were like, "Oh, there's 100 greatest knockouts," I'm like, "Why would you watch that? You weirdo!" But like, I like seeing skill. The problem with the women's division, unless they're the top three, it's a low level skill.
It's like that fight that's been carded for Paige Van Zandt and Rachel Ostovich.
Yeah.
One, Rachel Ostovich, I'm pretty sure has like a broken like
Yeah,
forward
punch, yeah.
so she shouldn't be fighting anytime soon. And two, her record is shady,
Salty.
but she's very sellable though.
Yeah.
But if you do a weight class controlled sport, right, then you want generally. There's exceptions to this, but you want as much like lean mass as possible, right? Especially the lighter weights. If you put in 4 or 5 pounds of tits, right? Like that's a strategic error. That's like me wearing a backpack on the scales. Like it just seems an odd move.
Yeah, but you know what? Like if it makes her feel happy and she likes it, then I wouldn't complain.
Just do it at the end of the fight career. That's all I think. Like it's a bad tactical thing to do.
But yeah,
go up a weight class.
Every eventually goes up 170 pounds.
Like, I think if it makes her happy, she should do it.
it's not too bad though. Her last 4 fights, going back to Shevchenko, one she beat Holly Holm,
Yeah.
Juliana Pena, lost to Amanda Nunes.
By what?
Lost to by.
It's pretty sure it's a decision. I thought she took her the distance.
Doesn't say. I can't see.
But she's a savage.
But, yeah.
And she's going to be so much bigger than Joanna.
Yeah. I'm going for Joanna as my outsider.
But she's never cut that much weight before. That's an interesting factor. Cardio. It's only 3 round fight.
Yep. No, it's 5 round fight.
Five?
Title fight.
Oh, it's title.
Yep.
Ooh, it's interesting.
Yep. And then the big one, Max Holloway v Brian Ortega.
I really hope it's Ortega.
Why Holloway? My family is from Hawaii. No, Miami. Hi, Hawaii. Honolulu.
Hawaii,
Yeah.
Why? Because he lives off the mainland, and so many people have criticised him for living there, for like there being like less facilities, like medical facilities and stuff like that. But he doesn't live on the mainland because that's where he wants to be with his family and so on and so forth. So.
Fair enough. No, honestly, I'm picking Ortega all day, but
he's just like he's a technician, isn't he?
Yeah. Is that your bet?
Brian Ortega to be featherweight champion at the end of the year. Brian Ortega to be champion at the end of the year. Brian Ortega to be champion at the end of the year. Brian Ortega to go undefeated in 2018. This is his only fight of the year.
Darren bet. You know when Bisping completely surprised the world by becoming champion? Darren had a bet on him to be champion at the end of the year and won like a couple of grand or so. 1,500 quid.
Yeah, 5 at 200 to 1. I've backed him 3 times to be champion at the end of the year at 7 to 2. And I've backed him to go unbeaten this calendar year at 5 to 1.
Yeah.
So
Ortega's a savage, man.
Yeah.
You know what's weird about his jiu-jitsu is that it's so good and it's very MMA good, but he's never really competed in jiu-jitsu. He's not like he goes in there and goes, oh, world jiu-jitsu champion or anything.
But is that this is me asking a question rather than suggesting that I believe that this is the case. Is that down to the fact that where he's learned jiu-jitsu, who he's learned jiu-jitsu from, and what they generally teach jiu-jitsu for?
It's a bit more self-defensive, certainly.
Because they're that kind of like Henna, Gracie.
Yeah.
And the majority of their stuff they do loads of like armed forces.
Yeah, it's true.
Help and stuff, don't they?
Bullyproof and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just unusual that someone, jumps straight into MMA if they're from a jiu-jitsu background. It's like jumping straight to heroin. That's what that is like.
But I guess arguably when he did jump, it was at a time where it was highly unlikely that there was any money to be made in jiu-jitsu anyway.
Yeah.
It's only been like the last couple of years where you can really make any money in jiu-jitsu.
And to quote our instructor Roger, he says that only 20% of jiu-jitsu works in the cage. Wow. It's like you think about how much stuff wouldn't work if someone was hitting you, and then doesn't work if you're not wearing a gi, and then doesn't work because it's strategically not applicable.
Yeah.
It's like you don't you remove a lot of jiu-jitsu. The same with anything. The same with boxing or wrestling, Muay Thai. Like when you've got to worry about takedowns, you lose a lot of it. But yeah, I think he's very good at that 20%. It comes a little bit from that background of the focus not being so much sports jiu-jitsu.
Given I've got to wrap in 2 minutes, who are we going for? All going for Ortega?
Yeah.
I am going for Ortega by knockout.
Ooh. I think Max is scared of the tape. Well, he had this weird weight cut and
something happened last
tumor
time.
on his brain or something.
Got pulled from his fight last time. Ortega knocked someone out not too long ago, didn't he? He's got good hands. I think he's we mentioned last time that when Ortega took someone down, there was a visible from the audience. People realised what could happen. I think Max is very aware of what happens if he gets taken down. Therefore, it over accentuates the stand up. But also that fact that he got pulled from that fight last time. No one knows why he got pulled from the fight. People were saying concussion-like syndrome or symptoms. No one still really knows. And
solid boxer there.
7-8 to 1, something like that. Ortega is to win by knockout. Obviously, it's a long shot, but like you ain't going to get rich backing people at evens. So I think that's value.
Good. I like the bet. That's a good bet. I mean, you've always got this like Gunnar Nelson earlier. When someone's so scared of being taken down, it makes you even have your hands lower because you've got stuff to take down. Yeah, it makes you more vulnerable to getting hit.
And don't get me wrong, if he hadn't been pulled from the last fight because of concussion-like syndromes, I would have thought that Max wins the fight because he looked sensational. But also, I wouldn't be on earth thinking he could possibly get knocked out by Ortega. But when you add everything together, I just think at 7-8 to 1, that is good value.
You know what's good value? Champion by the end of the year, Chuck Liddell. He looked great.
That was so sad watching that, wasn't it? That actually made me feel sick. I was like, you shouldn't.
He just needs money. I think he's like, I'll get beaten up for money.
No, but the worst thing was how Tito afterwards was going on about how he like wasn't getting the respect that he deserved, and it was like, dude, shut up. like if you're worried about respect right now, this late in your career, you've got issues.
Yeah. Tito's a bit odd though. Personal issues.
Yeah. We got 3 questions we asked everyone.
Yes. How big is it?
Referring to hold on, let's just go back. Let's just go back to it again.
No, 3.
Let's just go back to it one more time.
What? Men's fitness models training with you. Exactly. He was jealous. Did you see the picture?
Yes.
So other than those,
right.
So other than the
3 people, alive or dead, that you'd like to have dinner with, and why?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes.
Oh, up until the
even though he's a rapist.
Up until the last week.
I don't believe it. It's too nice.
I wasn't aware of these things. But
someone worked for him. Supposedly tried to sleep with them. They said no and rejected him, and then they quit working for him because they found it uncomfortable afterwards. Is that the worst thing that's ever happened? Someone tried to fuck someone they were with.
I mean, arguably nowadays the general consensus is that it's unacceptable to make anyone feel uncomfortable within the workplace, and it's especially unacceptable if you're in a position of power.
But that's now. If this happened now, I'd agree. But this is 20 years ago. About it just seems.
Still, it doesn't make it. It's
not a
difference in terms of moral standing just because it's 20 years different. I feel just different attitudes.
And I know this isn't exactly a workplace, but talking of uncomfortable.
Oh, go away! Right,
we don't let David feel uncomfortable, do we?
Yes, I'm going to talk about that the whole time.
All right, second person would be Christopher Reeve.
Oh, he was excited then.
Yeah, Superman.
Yeah, because that guy was everything to me growing up, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I'm more interested in Christopher Reeve. And then
I might have to backtrack on defending Neil deGrasse Tyson, but so there's 3 other women have come out from his life. Wow. So now he's got 4 women.
That's awful. That's not embarrassing at all. The third person, because I'm going to move on quite quickly, is Jason Momoa, because that guy strikes me as being just right up my alley.
It's quite a superhero lineup you've got there.
Yeah.
Well, I think with him, it's because he's known for just being like, and I don't mean this at all negatively, like a massive child, and he's just like so much fun from the looks of things, and it might turn out that he's really not like that, but that's why I have dinner with them.
Yeah. Have you met Superman at Rogers?
No.
I've been there when you were there. My wife stalks his Instagram trying to figure out when to go. So she.
No, I'd like to meet him. I think that'd be cool because I think a long time ago, before the Man of Steel was actually mentioned, I always used to joke that if I found out that there was a casting for a new Superman film, that I would go uninvited. And then I found out there was, and it was going to be him, and I was kind of like, oh, it's nice. It's another British dude. Like, so I was super happy about that. I quite like him.
He might be a terrible actor, though. I don't know.
He's not though. He's done like a lot of his like early acting stuff is
It's more
quality.
artistic. Yeah.
So next question is, who's the most famous person you got in your phone book?
Well, there, I guess it depends on who you think's more famous. One of them is obviously Hodger Gracie.
Yep.
And then the other one is Charlie Simpson, who is
Out of Busted.
Fight
Yes.
star.
No, he's not. He's
How
out
do
of
you know
Busted.
Charlie Simpson?
Out of Busted.
So here's the thing, right? Is he may well have changed his phone number since. I had
Okay.
it. Oh, I also have Anthony Joshua's phone number as well.
Oh, very good.
Again, that was another drunken escapade. But with Charlie Simpson, it was a really good friend of mine from home. Went to school with 3 of the lads from Fight Star, and he was in music as well. He produced and kind of recorded sort of a load of their stuff. I went to a show with him. He very kindly invited me to like access all areas sort of stuff, and then I met him and we kind of had a funny ass night in Sheffield on a Tuesday night, which ended with me actually having memories of me crawling down the pavement in the middle of Sheffield at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and realising that I'd fucked up.
So I'm a massive Fight Star fan.
Oh, yeah.
And then Charlie Simpson, I've all his like acoustic albums. Been to see him twice.
Honestly?
Yeah, I love him.
I'd never
One of my favourites. Yeah.
I love him. I love Fight Star and I love his acoustic stuff as well.
How about Busted?
Occasionally I'll stick Busted.
How about
on as well.
Busted?
I don't mind a bit of Busted. Don't like it's not my go-to, but I don't mind a little bit.
No, I didn't never went that far.
Well, giant child, but yeah.
Yeah. No.
Then last one. You can do that. I'll do it.
We did.
One bit of advice for listeners out there in the world. Could be cheesy, could be serious, could be...
How good I was. I prepped
Funny.
Dave on the question.
You did?
Yeah, we
You
never
did.
do this.
I'll go semi-cheesy, but
Yeah.
not quite cheesy. So one of the, I think this is more of a reflection of a piece of advice that I've given out the most frequently over the past however number of years, whether that be into like clients or to my little brother or to different people. And that's that I see a huge number of people that are always so heavily like problem focused. And what they do is they kind of like wallow in self-pity about this problem that's really, really kind of like causing them all sorts of drama and upset and stress and this, that, and the other. And very simply, the easiest thing or the best thing to focus on, it's not necessarily the easiest thing, whenever you encounter a problem, no matter what domain it is in life, is to actually, as long as you're able to identify the problem properly, it's to then take the identification of the problem and then become specifically like solution focused,
Right.
Which one takes away the stress of fixating on the problem itself, provides some degree of kind of like comfort and productivity and positivity as a result of moving towards the solution. And I think it's like, don't get me wrong, I definitely still have periods occasionally where I can become quite problem focused, and I have to remind myself to stop doing that and doing something else. And I think it's very applicable to everything in life, whether it's training, whether it's kind of like family life or business or anything like that. And it's just remembering that spending too much time focusing on the problem is counterproductive and will make you feel like shit.
Mm.
Whereas identify the problem, find the solution, take active steps towards that solution.
Boom.
Positive.
I like that.
You got a smiling face.
Yeah.
Cool.
We used to get don't iron your testicles and
Yeah,
like
that was a good one.
buy all the same socks.
Yeah, they're both good ones.
You like that?
Yeah, both good ones. Yeah.
Awesome. Wrap us up, Darren.
Sponsored by Lisa Mattresses. Go to leesa.co.uk/giraffe for at least an £80 discount. They have got strange offers, and not a while ago it was £120 discount. That may still be available, but you'll still get that if you go to our link. Go to Momadore's Kitchen. Use the code MamaSpicy for 10% off all spices, gift boxes. If you don't know what to buy someone for Christmas, buy them a gift box from Momadore's Kitchen. Also brought to you by Point Blank Cold Brew Coffee. Go to their website and get free delivery. feelsupreme.co.uk. Use the code SLAPHEAD for 10% off.
If you're a coffee person, we'll get a Point Blank. It's good.
Yeah,
It's good.
yeah. And Natural Nutrients. Go to naturalnutrients.co.uk. Use the code SLAPHEAD10 for 10% off everything.
Boom. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you,
It's a
sir.
pleasure.
Cheers.